There we go. Thank you very much. I got to the right part. So we are almost bang on time. By the time it sets up, we're going to be bang on time here for our next one, looking at conversational commerce and how to make money from it. So what is conversational commerce? So conversational commerce is chat. So ultimately here, we're talking about the likes of chat apps. We're going to be talking about RCS business messaging as well, and everything ultimately rich. And I'm pleased to be joined, as you can see, and we're going to be introducing, once mic'd up and ready to go. We have Pascal from France here, the CEO of Lagos. They're going to be introducing their companies. We've got Mike. Oh, you're ready to go, aren't you? We need some more chairs on here. Let me put the chair back on. How many do we need? We need another chair. Helen, thank you very much. Thank you. If you could just move this one along, Pascal. Thank you. See, we get everyone. Told you we're member-led, we're member-run, we're member-assisted, we're member everything. Lovely. That's great. I shall clear this away for the moment. Michael Power, are you ready? Yeah. Michael Power, come on down. Founder of Engage Mobile and also Ablar. And there we have Tim. Hello. Go and get mic'd up, or probably need one of the handhelds for him. Hello. Any more mics or not? We've got, can we just have the other handheld for Tim? Thank you very much. Turn it to green. You're good to go with that, Tim? And off we go. We're all set. Lovely. Yay, we're here. Right, so I will let my speakers here introduce themselves. So Pascal, your company, Lagos, and who are you? What do you do? No. Oh, it's still showing red. Can you switch it on? Oh.
Okay, that's much better.
Yeah.
Okay, so why Lagos? Lagos stands for Local Exchange Global Operation Services. So that means that we kind of love to think globally and act locally. So we're a declared operator in France, Germany, England, Spain, and next is Italy and Netherlands. So we are deploying fixed and mobile services to deliver convergent telephony and text services in these countries, so private labeled. And our customers are CPaaSs, OTTs, and those guys enjoy the fact that we think globally what those customer engagement platforms are all about, and also the fact that we fully embrace the local regulations, so the domestic regulations that, I mean, we've been just talking a bit about it, but we kind of switched, and we're switching in every European country from a kind of one-size-fits-all regulation on numbers, like we just mentioned this morning, to more use case by use case number ranges. So in each country we have different situation, and again our customers just enjoy giving us their needs and their use case in France, in Germany, in other country, and ask us which type of number they should use to do either voice or text services. So that's as simple as that.
Thank you very much, Michael. You've had a multifaceted career, and you're doing a couple of different things at the moment. So, what are you doing?
Yeah, thank you. So it does depend what day of the week it is as to which hat I wear. But my core business is Engage Mobile, and through that I provide consultancy really around the consumer experience. That's my focus. How can enterprises get the best from messaging using all the great tools and facilities that the people in this room provide? And my background has ultimately working with the industry to create CPaaS platforms. And one of the challenges that I feel we've created is actually, well, how does a consumer find how to chat with a brand? In that moment of need, when someone has perhaps a customer service issue, maybe their electricity goes off, we've got fantastic tools for messaging out, so A to P, But P2A is actually quite a challenge. So that's where I've created ablar.com to pull together all the brands in the world by working with the messaging industry to create a directory of chatbots and conversational endpoints that allow consumers to find how to chat. So that's my current initiative, how to make chat more accessible for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that all of us have been on the receiving end of a chatbot experience, which has been, it's my favorite word, suboptimal, to say the least. It really is. I've been using it for years, and it's a great word. It catches everything. There. Tim, your role at Google, what are you up to at Google?
Yes, hey everybody. I'm Tim Atkinson. I work for Google. I've been there about 6.5 years, I think now. I am predominantly focused on messaging. So this is all around RCS and RCS business messaging. I work directly with our carrier partners. So I'm responsible for our relationships in the Nordics as well as other parts of Europe. And we have a very keen focus right now on growing our RCS user base across the Android phones around the world, and working with carriers, the mobile network operators, channel partners for monetization, and making sure that carrier messaging stays relevant, given all of the other activity that's happening in the industry.
Fantastic. I think it's a really, really nice panel because we've got essentially an advisor provider. We've got Google with RBM itself sitting here. Basically, you're not RBM personification, but you might as well be because you talk about it all day. And we've got an operator here, Micaela.
That's an operator.
I know.
Yeah, and you hear me right?
Yeah, we hear you.
Better. My name is Micaela, and I'm happy to have you all here and hosting this event together with MEF. Great opportunity. I'm responsible, this unit is responsible for all things business messaging related, so both the bulk, but also as we call it, as a gateway, SMS gateways, but also around the CPaaS. So we try to cover it all.
Fantastic.
And here, of course, the conversational comes in.
Exactly. So at what point did Telia make the decision, okay, so we've got SMS as an offering, so we need to add that extra conversational, that extra chat component. We need to actually move into CPaaS. How long have you been on that journey for, approximately?
Yeah, I think you want me to say 5 years, but I think it's longer actually. So if I look at you, Mats, I mean, it's maybe 6-7 years when we look at these more workflow related stuff that we started off with.
Okay, so it's not new.
No,
but it's taking time. Okay, Pascal, are you seeing there's a real upshift and a change? There's a real urgency of the industry as a whole to provide conversational commerce solutions to enterprises. Who's driving that? Is it the enterprises demanding these solutions from us as an industry because subscribers are so used to these types of solutions in their person-to-person interactions that, no, we want these now? Or is there an element of the industry is creating that and driving that urgency, or is it somewhere in between?
Well, that's somewhere in between. Why that?
But how far along? Yeah.
Well, we used to have a great way to reach consumers. That was voice, telephony, call centers used to do outgoing call campaign or advertise on a phone number and generate inbound traffic. Then we've added some SMS, and now we're kind of mixing everything together. So that's the multi-channel. So the same call center and customer experience actor, they want reachability, and they want to be able to have innovative way of talking to their customers. So they want to call them out. Then they want the customers to be able to reply with SMS if they're interested in something. So a regulation is following up on that, and they're trying to structure. I mean, they're more followers than innovators traditionally. Some solutions are going a different path. So that's more of the RBM, RCS path, where even those technology or protocol are working according to standards, and the regulators are kind of moving towards that direction as well. So if those messaging services are using phone numbers, even if it's just a pseudo that is using your phone number, they're starting to get regulated a bit. But that's going all the same direction of having separate use cases for separate and different usage. So that's segmenting the market, and you want the consumer, so that's the other side, it would be somewhere in between. The consumer, they want to have the choice. But as you also mentioned this morning, well, maybe you don't want to have your OTP codes in your WhatsApp, or maybe you want them, but you want to have the choice, and you don't want to bother on each website to click on this box or that one to give your preference. So regulation is trying to sort a bit and give an opinion on that. On the French market, we're also adding this trust building issue where we are now the whole French market is thrilled about SteerShaken coming up in 2 months' time. So thank you, SteerShaken. We've been able to update our services and pricing and increase it, and not only because of the overall economic environment, but because we're enriching the service and bringing more trust in the services. So this is, and I think that was how to monetize some trust. So that's one way to do it. Just follow regulation. And again, our customers, they're asking as they're global, and I mean, Europe is just such a nightmare as far as regulation is concerned, that all global actors, including all the telemarketing and customer engagement platform, they read Europe as a unique market. So they need help to go deeper into understanding regulation, how they should run their services, which number ranges they should be using, and so on, so that you can deliver fully compliant services and go smoothly and increase your market shares.
Michael, so we've got an increasing number of channels now with which to engage. So Pascal was basically talking about originally. It's a simple era. You've got voice, you've got SMS, you've got email, basically. And then along came WhatsApp. Let's back up here, because it was Viber who had the first business messaging chat solution out there. It wasn't WhatsApp, it was Viber. And had that. What about fragmentation? Is the fact that there are simply so many different means of getting to us consumers basically frying the brains of enterprises, and this fragmentation is making things so confusing that you end up going, do you know what? I'm just going to carry on doing what I've always been doing, sending a bit of email and a bit of that. And people are sidestepping business messaging to a huge degree because of that fragmentation and confusion.
I think that's definitely true to a point, and certainly was a few years ago. And I would also argue that Messenger, Facebook Messenger, arguably maybe one of the first business routes to a consumer, which actually came with a whole bunch of its own problems, but we won't spend time on that. And I think it has created confusion for brands because they were looking for a ubiquitous channel. And I use the word ubiquitous because we've all used that for how to sell SMS. And I think what we've seen over the last few years is actually how to reach the demographic you want to speak to on the channel that's relevant to them. And that can be geographically locked. So if you're in Brazil, maybe you're going to use WhatsApp. If you're in parts of Eastern Europe, it's going to be Viber. Maybe Australia might be Messenger. And I think that's really where the CPaaS market and the Cinches and the Infobips and the Ciscos of our industry are helping brands to understand, well, actually, you can use all of those channels, but you have to focus on what demographic you're trying to access. And I think what we're seeing now is a really interesting point where, with RCS starting to bring back, well, it's bringing in the rich messaging, and I would say the carousel is the ultimate upsell and cross-sell feature of any channel.
Could you just explain that to some people probably in the room and listening to the recorded session at a later point? What do you mean by carousel?
Yeah, okay. So the carousel is a rich card, and a rich card is a combination of an image, some text, and some call to action buttons. And this is just let's take a standard A2P case of your delivery, something you've purchased from an online shop. you get the order confirmation saying it's coming through. Well, if you can wrap that in a rich card and then add to that some extra leaves, so some extra panels, some more rich cards, which the consumer can scroll through. So if the consumer chooses to, they can then look at the other things, the complementary products that you might try to sell with it. So and that works for any use case, whether it's an appointment that you've got somewhere. Well, here's some things, maybe it's the directions to get to the nearest car park, whether it's purchasing something, maybe going to an event and some similar events, or even partner offers. There's so many applications for that in the commercial
An
sense.
app in a SMS.
Exactly that, an app in SMS. It's the ultimate feature. And I think with us being able to roll that out now in large parts of the world through the work that Google and the operator community are doing, we're going to get rich messaging and ubiquity. Clearly there's the Apple, the iOS part to that, but I think again, that's where the aggregator community comes in, to being able to solve that, to switch between the right channel, and be able to offer similar functionality regardless of what operating system. Well, we've now solved that problem of channel fragmentation for brands.
Building on that, I mean, you don't always you can't always reach the whole customer base. That is seldomly that you can do that with any channel, radio or TV commercial or whatever. So given that, I think it's one of the answers to why RCS, RBM, even though, especially here in the Nordics, where it's lots of iOS.
Absolutely. So I think fragmentation has been an issue. There were some solutions around sort of targeting certain demographics, but if we can get RBM rolled out and get that rich messaging and ubiquity brought together, then again, it gives us a really strong option and a strong commercial offering to all brands to make it simple again.
Tim, what do operators, so through RCS and RBM, essentially, you've given operators an opportunity to keep a good portion of that when it comes to the rich side of things, conversational commerce side of things, a good portion of the revenue in-house, within their own house, and not to be, literally gone over the top of. What do operators need to do, from your opinion, now? Because RCS isn't new. It's been around for 10 years, ultimately. But now there's a real sense, it's really, really starting to happen. And I think a key part of that puzzle is India, where it's relaunched. It's a huge market. I said 1.4 billion people. Relaunching their potential is absolutely huge. So that's a key thing now. It was nice to be there with Google around that launch period in India back in April. It was very nice to see that firsthand. But what, from your perspective, do operators need to do? The operators sitting in the room right now, or you're talking generally to the ones in Europe and beyond, what do they need to do now, and how fast to embrace this opportunity they've got? And if, from your perspective, if they don't take this opportunity, how fast do you think it will be before actually it's lost and ultimately everything goes WhatsApp way?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I could spend hours answering this, but I'll try and be as succinct as possible. I used an analogy this morning in a meeting with the local carriers with regards to being prepared. So we look at a longer term window. We're looking sort of 5 to 10 years out, and what does the landscape look like? We know what it could look like. It could look like P2P SMS does today, which is, I'm not going to say it's non-existent because that's not true, but from a monetization perspective, there is very little monetization which sort of directly comes from it. It's generally bundled. In some markets, that's not entirely the case, but if you look in Europe generally, that's kind of how it is. And we know what happened there. WhatsApp being the sort of one of the main drivers in this region anyway, and others have provided a superior experience to SMS. And all you have to do is have a smartphone, download an app. It's free. You use it, works over Wi-Fi, off you go. And, all of my family use WhatsApp and various other applications. Someone, I think you made a point earlier, they don't actually like business messaging being in there because they chose this to chat to their friends, not so much to chat to their businesses, etc. There's a very unique selling point with carrier messaging. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that carrier messaging remains very relevant. So today there's 5+ billion phones around the world that are all connected that receive SMSs regularly. There's lots of statistics on this. I use 5 billion more than that. But that's the good thought. Now, that is the fallback. And what we've been doing, Google, very much working with the carrier community, have been looking to upgrade those 5 billion users with a richer experience. And we're doing that through RCS, standards based. And on top of that, we provide a map platform or an RBM business messaging platform, as we call it, so RCS business messaging. And we provide all of this to any carrier in the world that wishes to use it. I'm happy to say we've got many, many carriers now using it. All of the big groups, pretty much everyone in Europe, and it's growing across the world, are partnering with Google to do that. It's very much a partnership. It's not a sort of vendor customer relationship. It's very much a partnership. And there's probably some folks in the room thinking, well, why are Google so interested in this? Is this going to be a bait and switch situation? Absolutely not. This is about making sure that Android has the best experience on a messaging perspective as possible. Android compete directly with iPhone. iPhone have a very good messaging experience through their iMessage application. It's rich, it's OTT, it's secure in terms of privacy and encryption, and we're doing the same with RCS. We need to make sure that every Android user gets that great experience as well on our devices. So that's the key thing for us, working with our carrier community on that, where we rely on distribution for Android phones. We offer the business messaging platform. And to your question, what does a carrier need to do? The short answer is actually not a lot beyond make a decision, come and talk to Google about how you get access to the RBM platform, which is quite simple. And I'm not joking when I say this. Within a matter of days, you can be up and running and managing traffic onto your network. Over the last 6 or so years that I've been working at Google, we've really refined processes, the commercial agreements we have in place, the platform itself, to make it as simple as possible.
What's the business model? So let's say I'm an operator sitting in the room who may not be doing anything, says, yeah, okay, we're going to go for it. We're going to sign up with you today, Tim. What's the business model? Is it CapEx? Is it all OpEx, rev share, or how does it look?
Yeah, there's a rev share model, which comes in later on. Google are not at the moment looking to monetize on this. We want to make sure that this becomes ubiquitous, basically, is there available to everybody. So we offer this to our carriers free of charge at the point of deployment, if you like. So no one has to, there's no money changes hands. Obviously, there's an agreement in place, a commercial agreement. This covers all of the usual things, commercials, including sort of data protection, all of that. This is Google making commitments about what we'll do and what we won't do. So to be very clear, Google.
I was about to say, because look, the T word, if all of us here would have been paid, doesn't matter, dollar, euro, I'll take the pound, I'll take a pound. £1, one British pound for every time the trust word would have been mentioned. I think I'd have a nice holiday by now.
Yes.
So yeah, this whole thing about, we talked about Meta, WhatsApp, doing two-factor authentications, this whole thing, it's Google. They're having access to everything. How do you counter that resistance, possibly from some operators, possibly from some other areas, that it's Google, we don't want them to have access to everything? How do you go about that? It's a valid point, I think, for
people will be aware that Google's main business model is around advertising. It's data and advertising, being able to provide targeted ads to businesses. It's completely different with RBM. RBM we do not see as an advertising channel at all. Sure, there will be some ads in terms of promotions where users signed up and said they're happy to receive that, but this is not an advertising channel. We never expect to see advertising in the Google Messages app on the phone. That Messages app, by the way, is a native app which ships with the phone. So out of the box, it's there. It does SMS, MMS, and it does RCS. We sign up through our agreements with our carriers and through the agreements that we have for any developer, that might be a brand, an aggregator, whoever who's using the RBM platform, explain exactly how we use the data. The reality is we don't really use the data apart from making sure the service is working. We don't look at any content, it's encrypted. We don't use it for we don't take any of that information and use it for any advertising or anything else in any other part of Google. And so we're very strict on that, and that is the way that is, and that's the way that will maintain. There are some other channels, OTT channels, that I expect will be doing sort of more advertising there, but we know they will be using data for other parts of their business, which is to be expected and understood. Lots of people are comfortable with that, some people aren't. But from a Google perspective, we serve the carriers, if you like, here. And so one of the, just building on that USP, got 5 billion users, which we can fall back to if they're not reachable over RCS yet. That will grow over time. It's a carrier ecosystem.
That fallback is critical.
That fallback is critical.
That's really critical
really
compared
critical.
to some others, shall we say.
That's really critical. The fact that it's a carrier ecosystem, which is generally regulated around the world and trusted by financial institutions, governments, etc., who all put their traffic through there today, is also another big selling point, I think, of why carrier messaging is relevant and will remain relevant. I think we've talked about it today on the sort of trust and consumer trust side of things. RBM offers verification and branding, so you get a much better experience when you offer a message to your customer. They can be sure that it's come from you because their carrier that they have a subscription with has verified the message comes from where it says it's come from. There's branding on there, and also you get a great experience. So back to your question about what does a carrier need to do, they have put a partnership agreement in place with us. We literally give them the keys to the engine, and they can go off and they manage RBN themselves. It's not something that Google do. That's something that the carriers themselves do. They set the pricing. They have agreements with their channel
I was about
partners.
to mention that, the price commercial model,
Pricing
because all of this is wonderful. Doesn't matter what channel you use, whether it's WhatsApp, who've changed their pricing today, or whatever you use. But if the commercial model isn't right, it's game over.
Yeah, the carriers determine the pricing. Over time we've come up with some messaging models in terms of the type of messages. So I'll go through that because I think that's relevant. Please chip in here, guys. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, I know.
I mean, I'm thinking about how fast it goes,
We haven't got much time, but it is. But I think it's a valuable hearing because it's great
valuable.
opportunity.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. So what we are seeing happening now, led by the carriers again, is we are seeing SMS traffic starting to move into RBM. So where you're going to send an SMS, 160 character or less message, it goes over the RBM channel. It's verified and it's branded. We've got some great use cases.
And that could be the important thing. It can be one way because in MEF now we have a simple message, RCS simple message sub-working group focusing on the fact that hey, RBM is great for one-way messaging as well. Don't just think about it. I know the title is Conversational Commerce, but
that's the starting point. It's one way. So if you take Asda, which is part of the Walmart group, Asda's big supermarket chain in the UK, in December they started sending notification messages for deliveries of groceries to their customers. They started sending those over RCS where it was possible. So they have, I can't remember what it is, a huge daily number of SMSs which are sent out, some millions. A proportion of those are being sent over RCS. They're verified, they're branded. They got a fantastic feedback from their customers. They loved it because Asda is saying, oh, suddenly our brand is in the message. We never had that before. So our brand is appearing on the mobile phone. We can push that out to the customer. The customer is very happy and trusts that it comes from us, and they're looking to do more with that and grow that out across their base. And more supermarkets now want to do the same, having seen that. So we have this basic message, which is the carriers price that the same as an SMS. So actually, as a brand, you get a better experience than you did with SMS. And if it's not reachable, you have that fallback. So it will go as an SMS.
It's clear. So we've got a question. Go ahead.
I think we have to. I'm in Telia, but I come originally from standardization world. So I worked a lot on 3G standardization before in my career. So I'm very much into the standardization. I was also part of that project in Telia. But you know that the green button on Android is one-to-one only to the Google backend. So there is a lock-in there today. It's not an open system. It's like anything you can buy from a vendor, you can of course use it. We have a revenue share agreement, but we don't have a kind of it's a kind of one-to-one that you have to use Google backend. So it's not an open system as it was originally planned in RCS. And you talked about earlier that you would maybe open it later, but it was closed down. There was a decision in top management in Google to do that. But I would like to hear what is your view on that now, still a locked system.
Well, I'd argue it's not a closed system. It's standardized, and we have had carriers that have had their own RCS, P2P and MAP platforms interconnected in. The reality of this has been, though, over the period of time that I've been involved with this, it's very complicated. It's costly to the carrier because they need to maintain a platform. They need to keep that platform up to standards and up to features. And we've seen very recently, and this is all public, Deutsche Telekom, Vodafone, Telefonica as three big carrier groups have actually moved away from their own in-house or third-party platform and moved over to Google. That says a lot, I think, about trust between the carriers and Google that they're doing that. And also it means that they can focus on monetization of the channel and not have to worry about the heavy lifting and keeping everything up to date. We can connect map platforms in. Interestingly, we've only got 1 or 2 carriers in Europe that are asking to do that, and that they will probably do that. But ultimately, when that conversation happens, we explain to them they can integrate or connect a map platform in if they want to, or they can use the Google platform. What tends to happen is they start the project planning of their map platform, which generally is many, many months. They start using the Google platform as an interim, and they tend not to go back because they realize actually it works very well, the Google platform. They're happy with the commercial partnership arrangement, and so that's the way it is. Interestingly, where we've got to today, so where Google has got to in this ecosystem, has been led and driven by the carriers. We've been asked by carriers to do certain things, and we've done those things to make life as simple as possible, as frictionless as possible, so that carriers can get on and concentrate on keeping carrier messaging relevant, make sure that that is the most optimized experience out to their customers, and have an answer to the OTTs who are ever coming to market with new and interesting capabilities on their platforms, and we need to make sure that carrier messaging is maintained. So that's where, in a couple of minutes, my answer to yours. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think generally we see it as an add-on. Of course, we can run a lot more traffic through it, but it's gonna, like you say, 5 to 10 years, or was it even 10 to 15? But we see that.
Yeah,
if I can add on that, because we're talking about the operators' strategy and Google, I guess we're missing the brands. And the brands, they don't care to have to reach the Telia customers or the Tele2 customers. They want to reach all Android or iPhone customers. So they would better have Google platform than Telia platform for RCS.
If I can add to that.
And they all connect to that platform. And then you need to make sure that, and your point is, how do you interconnect the Apple platform with the Android platform? And that's someone else's business. It's more GSMA or someone else's business.
If I can add to that, just
yeah.
Access and not impossible.
It was, but you've seen the rise of the OTTs. Again, I think exactly as as Pascal was saying, the challenge was that the enterprise sees some fantastic ways to engage better with their customers, being able to send rich media, which I think there was a Vodafone study where they did an A/B test with some text for their VPET product, a little GPS tracker, and they included a picture of, I think it was a video with a bounding puppy with a family behind it, and it was like a 400 times increase on the engagement with that message.
Yeah, what we see is, of course, the upsell with RBM. So even if the customer base is smaller and you say, of course, we need the brands, there's no point the carriers having RBM or without with the B2B customers. But what we see, of course, is that it's so much more upsell for the customers, for the B2B customers. And that's where, when you start having those use cases and it's talked about and so on, and I think it's in the marketing mix that you can have that, that's when it's gonna take.
Micaela, do you know what? It's a really good time to end, because we've got to end this. We could talk for a long time. Talking about use cases, if you go to, dare I say it, if you go to Google search and you type in RCS use cases, I think number 4, you will find MEF's RCS use cases, which is MEF members showcasing. If you do that now for somebody, is it still number 4? I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I don't know where it is now. MEF RCS use cases. Where is it on Google search?
James, if I could just close.
Go on. Go on.
So
Michael.
The key thing was, how do we make more money from conversational commerce?
Yes.
We talked a lot about A to P. And the key thing that I want to make the room aware of is the P2A use cases. So making sure that not just about outbound messaging, but how do we make these channels easy for consumers to find them, and all of the use cases that come from that. And the reason for that is, in the traditional world of A to P, we're having to convince brands to start sending. So we make our money by convincing brands to use cases where they're outbound messaging. If we can change that to a use case where the consumer starts the conversation, and as long as the brand knows that they make more money and they create a better customer experience from every single message that's sent, we've just created the blank check.
We got the jury. And Lisa, what did you say? Well, number 4, yes, still number 4. Thank you. So so
just on that P2A piece, I should say, obviously we talked about, I keep mentioning A to P, but you're absolutely right, Mike. Actually this quarter, we're June now, aren't we? So it's about to go live. We will have short codes, QR codes, discoverability, all available through RBM, so you can put a QR code on a bus stop advert or in a magazine or wherever that may be, and that creates that P2A channel, which starts an RBM conversation. So all of that stuff is being invested in by Google, to make that available, because that's what the ecosystem is asking for. So that's what we're doing.
Fantastic, and that's it. And just my final comment to this: we've got RCS use cases, number 4 on Google, and we're going to be having all of you out here SMS use cases as well. We're going to be having a showcase page on MEF's website for that. So wow, if we can get that to number 4, that would be amazing. But there we are. So all get ready to contribute to that. So thank you very much indeed. Pascal, safe travels home, because I know you're rushing off to the airport now in 7 or 8 minutes.
Thanks.
Safe travels home. And Mike, thank you very much for joining us. Tim, great seeing you. Thanks for making the journey over. And Micaela, thank you for hosting us, and thank you for being on the panel.
You're welcome.
Thank you.